Hi everyone, welcome to my case study presentation. Today we will be analyzing sea otter stewardship's influence on the social ecological system in Monterey Bay's marine ecosystem. This is what we'll cover today. First, I will begin with an introduction to the history and ecological value sea otters provide to Monterey Bay's marine ecosystem. Then I will briefly discuss the methods of this analysis. Next, I will look at the stewardship framework applied over two management periods and highlight the most crucial dynamics apparent in the framework application. And then I will discuss some key findings and management implications of those findings. Finally, we will end with a few conclusions to the analysis. Sea otters' ecological characteristics provide them with powerful leverage to influence the social ecological system and sustainable management of marine resources in Monterey Bay, California. They hold a predator role in kelp forest ecosystems, and their presence or absence can have profound downstream effects on the rest of the ecosystem. Today, the revival of sea otters in Monterey Bay is a stewardship and rehabilitation success story. However, sea otter's ecological value was not always understood, and sea otter stewardship took a backseat to profit and food security motives of the social and economic systems in place up through the early 1900s. The southern subspecies of sea otters had been thought to have gone extinct by the 1920s, until a small population of 50 was found off of Big Sur's coast in 1938 by researchers. The rediscovery of southern sea otter populations off the coast of Big Sur in 1938 catalyzed decades of research, education, advocacy, and stronger legal protections that influenced the social ecological system, fueled by a shifting cost-benefit analysis of otter stewardship. Scientists discovered that otters could greatly improve the health of ecosystems in the 1970s, and by 1977, sea otters were declared threatened under the Endangered Species Act. Conservation efforts paired with protections has improved population sizes and ecosystem health in the region and along the Pacific coast since then. However, it wasn't always a straight line to sea otter stewardship success. The appropriate set of social and economic conditions needed to be present for the community to realize the value sea otter stewardship could bring to their communities. Sea otters eat sea urchins, and sea urchins eat kelp, so the return of otters can also mean the return of kelp forests, which means a vibrant community of algae, fish, and other marine mammals. In the Elkhorn Slough estuary in the Monterey Bay, the impact was even greater. Otters eat crabs, and crabs eat sea slugs. Sea slugs keep the seagrass healthy by eating algae, so more otters can actually mean more large sea slugs and healthier seagrass meadows. And all of this can mean a more vibrant ecosystem to provide stakeholders with enhanced benefits, including more diverse fisheries, better recreational opportunities, and economic gain. Conservationists have been working to improve the otter populations in this region extensively since the 1980s, and they've steadily improved their reintroduction methods since then. The Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary was designated in 1992. This signaled a huge success for both otter and marine stewardship and sustainability efforts, and in the story of sea otter stewardship, it's a natural break from progressive recovery-driven stewardship initiatives to a steady, stable, whole of ecosystem approach to managing the marine ecosystems in Monterey Bay. However, trade-offs do exist due to sea otters' voracious prey on invertebrate species. This can impact the social system by reducing invertebrate fishery profits. It can also impact fisheries by other marine closures as well. So I set out to answer the question, how does sea otter stewardship influence the social ecological system and sustainable management of marine resources in Monterey Bay, California? My thesis for this case study is sea otter stewardship influences the social ecological system and sustainable management of marine resources through direct and indirect changes in net value that result from increased protection. The classification of sea otter stewardship influences and analysis of catalysts, feedback loops, and leverage points can better inform resource managers and their efforts to ensure stewardship efforts are both impactful and sustainable. This can provide context for future stewardship efforts unrelated to sea otters by detailing the dynamics that allowed sea otter stewardship to succeed over the decades. To perform my analysis, I utilized a broad-based literature review of sea otter stewardship and management initiatives utilizing EBSCOhost and Google Scholar and subsequent governmental and non-governmental resources. I applied the environmental stewardship framework from Bennett et al. 2017 by utilizing definitions to classify the major actors, motivations, capacity, actions, outcomes, and contextual factors influencing or being influenced by sea otter stewardship. I created two of these matrices, one for prior to the creation of the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary, and one post-1992 that broadly detail the current state. I then assessed the results of each and compared and contrasted the two time periods to identify any major catalysts, feedback loops, or leverage points crucial to the success and sustainability of stewardship efforts. Next, we'll move on to the results. This is the Sea-otter stewardship framework representing the stewardship dynamics present in Monterey Bay, California prior to 1992. I'm not going to detail each of these matrices line by line, but I will highlight the most important components made apparent throughout this analysis. The big takeaways from this period and matrix can be found in the outcomes, actions, and contextual factors. The most immediate takeaway I had when analyzing this matrix was the outcome section. There are a wealth of positive ecological and social outcomes of sea otter stewardship with a few crucial pitfalls. Maximizing the positive value of stewardship and minimizing the cost of negative trade-offs is crucial to the sustained success of stewardship efforts. Next, context is crucial. This matrix is not static. Actors with motivations and capacity were added or altered over time based on specific social, economic, and ecological conditions. There is a steady progression of actors' actions leading to added knowledge and protections during this period, which brings me to my last takeaway from this matrix. Take a look at the action section and you'll notice a suite of top-down protections and bottom-up research and advocacy-driven initiatives. There's very little middle ground. They're additive and really represent the dynamics that drove stewardship during this time period. This is the Sea-otter stewardship framework representing the stewardship dynamics present in Monterey Bay, California after the creation of the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary in 1992. As you can see, a majority of the actors' motivations and outcomes can be described as fairly constant to the previous time period. An important factor noted in the contextual factors is that all of the knowledge and top-down protections generated during earlier recovery efforts are still present and offering support to the system. The value generated by those efforts is also present and influencing the system as well. The most pronounced theme in this period is really the addition of capacity given to local stakeholders in the form of local assets. This is also present when assessing the major actions influencing the system as well. The creation of the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary and the California Marine Protected Areas came with enhanced tools for stakeholder input and engagement. This is beneficial for managers looking to minimize the negative trade-offs associated with sea otter stewardship. It's also reinforced by enhanced mitigation and monitoring efforts, allowing for adaptive management by state agencies. The stewardship influences during this period are largely driven by whole ecosystem management initiatives, but direct influences of research, advocacy, education, and tourism value are still present. The primary catalyst for sea otter stewardship over the decades has been the benefit or value of ecosystem services gained by otter stewardship outweighing the negative trade-offs associated with stewardship. For example, in the early 1900s, when otters were thought to be extinct and commercial fisheries were extremely valuable, there was no real benefit and a high cost to stewardship activity. However, sea otter stewardship gained value via research, education, and advocacy during the same period that the highly profitable cannery roe fisheries collapsed and the region fell into economic hardship. The conditions here were right for stewardship activity to take off due to falling opportunity costs of stewardship paired with an increased perceived value in the social system. Managers should put a heavy focus on maximizing the ecological benefits while minimizing the negative trade-offs of stewardship. This can be facilitated by mitigation, monitoring, adaptive management, and stakeholder engagement. For example, costs to invertebrate fisheries can be mitigated with marine mariculture techniques and seasonal access. The most prominent feedback loop identified in this analysis is driven by research, advocacy, and tourism. These activities increase knowledge and motivation, which results in stewardship actions taken by varying levels of actors. Because sea otters' ecological benefits tend to outweigh their costs, this results in positive social and ecological outcomes. Those positive outcomes generate further interest and value, which results in additional research, advocacy, and tourism. This dynamic is self-reinforcing in this case, but is heavily influenced by the benefits derived from sea otter presence. Managers can look to leverage these dynamics in future stewardship initiatives that require an increase in public value of stewardship effort. A final lesson learned in this analysis is related to social system support. Early influences of sea otter stewardship are heavily driven by actors with top-down capacity, and as well as bottom-up research and advocacy efforts. It's hard to imagine the research and advocacy efforts would have had adequate time and resources to increase the value of sea otter stewardship without some of the initial top-down actions, preventing hunting, protecting local habitats, and removing a lot of the direct barriers to repopulation. However, it's desirable to engage local stakeholders and increase their capacity to provide input in an effort to mitigate the negative trade-offs associated with stewardship. This ultimately sustains the total value of stewardship. In conclusion, how does sea-otter stewardship influence the social ecological system and sustainable management of marine resources in Monterey Bay, California? Influence is driven by direct and indirect changes in net value that result from increased protection. A positive cost-benefit relationship for sea-otter stewardship catalyzes positive stewardship outcomes. Research, advocacy, and tourism drive positive feedback loops, and top-down control offers baseline support while local stakeholder empowerment drives sustainable outcomes. That concludes my presentation. Thanks for listening, everyone.